Everybody, this is Dream, and today we have an 8-game Major League Baseball slate. Thank you guys for bearing with me on having a couple of days off. Before I get started, you guys smash that like and subscribe button. It really helps the channel a lot. Make sure to check out the description below and check out Discord and memberships and stuff like that. So let's go ahead and get in the slate. We're going to start with our pitchers here. We're going to start with Scherzer, who's the most expensive option. In 9 of his last 11 starts, he's had 20 fantasy points or better. He's also had solid upside in this matchup, but he is not my favorite play on this one. He, though, has been pitching well. He doesn't have quite as much upside as some of the other options, but he is a viable option on the slate regardless. Tyler Glasnow is a core play for me for Tampa Bay today. He's been really solid all season long. He's had 7 straight games over 20 fantasy points. He's only given up 1 earned run in 5 of those games. He's also been just great with the upside here in this matchup against San Francisco, who is a tough hitting park, so that does give him an advantage as well. This is why he's a core play. He's pitching well, and he has really good upside and plus matchup. So then we'll look at Fried for Atlanta. Now he has been back from injury for 1 game. He had a little bit of a rough start in his first one, but he does face the Yankees today, and he'll have some opportunity to get some good strikeouts here. It is a little bit risky, especially with his potential pitch count, but he does have a decent K rate for this matchup, and he will probably be somewhat limited. But his price is also a little bit more limited, and he's a good pitcher, so he should have some upside on this particular slate. Yu Darvish is in a very difficult position here against Baltimore. He's also been inconsistent throughout the season. This matchup is not super ideal, but he is capable of having a big game, and he has as much upside as anybody. But I do think his range for this game is a 15 to 25 fantasy point range. So we'll have to wait and see how he does. But he's been very up and down throughout the year. And then Kelly for Arizona. Now he has been hurt, but he looks like he'll be back today. He has been pitching pretty well, though he is facing Colorado in Colorado, so that is a little bit of a concern. He's had some ups and downs, but his ERA has still been really solid, and he has a decent strikeout rate for this game. But he is high risk, high reward today, so do keep that in mind. Then we'll look at Singer for Kansas City. In 6 of the last 7 games, he's been over 15 fantasy points with 5 quality starts, so that does give him some utility. He hasn't got a good K rate, but he does have he has been pitching well and has limited the earned runs for the most part in the last few games. He's high risk, high reward though against Seattle, who does have some good bats. And then we'll look at Mikolas for St. Louis. Now he's facing Oakland. He's been inconsistent throughout the year, but he has some potential in this plus matchup to get 20 fantasy points. His floor is super bad though, so do keep that in mind. Let's go and get into our catchers. We're going to start with Garver for Texas. Now, he has hit the ball pretty well recently with 3 home runs over the last 10 games. He's hitting nearly 400, and he has a really good upside here on the slate as a home run potential guy. I also like Cal Raleigh a little bit. He has been pretty inconsistent recently, but he's still hitting home runs. He's a little bit more boomer bust from a home run perspective, but he is capable of hitting one today as well and has great metrics for it. And then Moreno for Arizona. He is in Colorado today, and he has nice upside in this one. Despite the fact he's not a big home run threat, he does have some potential for a good hitting day today, especially with a little bit extra power on this particular slate. Then we'll look at Christian Walker for Arizona at first base. Now, he is facing Colorado at Colorado, and he has nice home run upside, and he has good potential for hitting as he's hit the ball very well recently. In Colorado, giving this home run upside, that definitely boosts his potential in this particular game. Ohtani also in play for LA Angels. He has been pretty good recently. He hasn't been quite as good as he was, but he's still hitting well. He has home run upside and stolen base potential, though he is very expensive and hard to roster as a result. Then we'll look at Matt Olson for Atlanta. He has just hit the ball extremely well over the last few weeks. He's at 43 home runs now, and he's hitting the ball almost 400 over the last 10 games with 6 home runs. He's just been crushing the ball and having huge fantasy point days. He's definitely the type of guy that can be in a perfect roster, in a perfect matchup and get first place if he does well. Dan Vogelbach is also in play today, though he is a home run or bust guy. He has some good potential in this particular game, and so I do think he has some viability here as a cheaper option. And then we'll look at Luke Raley for Tampa Bay. Now he can play in outfield as well. He has been very streaky, though, and he has been a bit inconsistent recently with just a really bad batting average. But he does draw good metrics for this game and home run upside. And then Ty France for Seattle. He has really good metrics for this game. He has been somewhat inconsistent recently as well, but he does draw good potential here. Not a huge home run threat, but he's able to get a couple hits today. He'll pay off at this price. Then we'll look at second base and we'll look at Ketel Marte. Now he doesn't have the best metrics today, but he is in a great spot here against Colorado. He has been a bit slumped though, so he is a little bit risky, but he definitely has a nice upside. Colorado's kind of or Arizona's in a weird spot today because they are stackable, but they also have been some streakiness going on with the team. If Ozzy Albies does play today, which I think he probably will, he will have the opportunity. He will be hitting the ball extremely well recently. He's had really good home run upside as well as just stolen base potential. Even he's had a few in the last 10 games. He has had some absolutely massive games scoring wise as well over the weekend, and we'll look for him to continue that here in a nice plus matchup if he does draw the start. Then we'll look at Torres for the Yankees. He has some really good upside here. He's hit the ball very well as well recently, and he's scoring fantasy points in lots of different ways, and has really good potential for a good game. Uh, he has good upside in this one with good fantasy point production per game as well. Then we'll look at Isaac Paredes for Tampa Bay. Now he can play second base or shortstop, though he has been, or sorry, second base or third base, but he has been inconsistent recently. But he does draw good metrics for this game, and I think he's a viable option on the slate, though he is a little bit risky. But he's also a little bit cheaper. So maybe on third base, we'll look at Ryan McMahon for Colorado. He has been very inconsistent, but he's a lot better at home usually than he is on the road. And he does draw some good metrics for this game. If you decide to go with some Colorado players, he's probably the top guy to go with. Of course, Tovar at shortstop is also available. Austin Riley is in play here for Atlanta as well. He has hit the ball very well recently. Even without the home runs, he's scoring fantasy points in most games. So I do think he has some really nice upside in this matchup. He's also a little bit cheaper than some of the other Atlanta bats, though he is pretty expensive just the same. Paredes can also play here at third base. Brian Hayes is in play for Pittsburgh. He has a nice plus matchup against Carrasco. I do like Pittsburgh as a kind of a contrarian stack today. He has had some home run success recently, though he's not a huge home run hitter. He does draw good metrics and has good fantasy point potential. And then Duran for Texas. Now he can play third base or shortstop. He's hit the ball very well recently with a 310 batting average over the last 10. He has a little bit of home run upside, but he doesn't necessarily need it as he's managed to score fantasy points in lots of different ways. Maybe a shortstop, we'll look at Bobby Witt Jr. for Kansas City. Now, he has been inconsistent throughout the year, but he is hitting the ball very well right now. And this is a tough matchup, but he does have stolen base potential and home run upside. The matchup is a little bit concerning, but of course, I don't think the pitcher is right here on DraftKings, just so you know. But we'll find out later today. Then we'll look at Lindor for the Mets. He has hit the ball pretty well recently. He has nice upside in this one. I like his potential, especially the way he's scoring fantasy points in each game. He has had some lower scoring fantasy point games, but he does have good 10 plus fantasy point upside on this particular slate. Then we'll look at Tovar for Colorado. Now he has priced up a little bit because this game is back in Colorado, but he has good metrics here. He also hits the ball pretty well in Colorado. His batting average is significantly higher, and his fantasy point production is higher too. He does have a tough matchup, but he is a viable option on the slate at this position. And then Edmund for St. Louis is in play. He's hit the ball extremely well recently with 3 home runs over the last 10 games and a 350 batting average. He's managed to score fantasy points pretty well, regardless of if he hits a home run or not. He does draw some really good metrics for this game, and so I do think he's a great option on the slate. Maybe the outfielders, we'll look at Corbin Carroll first for Arizona. He's obviously a great hitter, though he has been inconsistent recently. He does draw home run metrics for this game, and he is facing Colorado with one of their weakest pitchers, so that gives him a lot of upside, especially if you go with that Arizona stack. Acuna also in play. Now he's been hitting the ball pretty well, though he's not hit but 1 home run in the last 10 games, but he does draw all the good metrics with home runs and stolen base potential and stuff like that, and he's scoring a ridiculous amount of fantasy points per game. Then we'll look at Ohtani again here. He can play at this position as well. Then we'll look at Tommy Pham. If he draws a start today, he'll be somebody that I would consider as a home run or best play. He does typically be inconsistent, but he does draw great metrics for this game. Jake McCarthy falls in the same situation. He's been in a slump, but he does draw good potential in the slate, though he's not a home run option. He's just a guy to help you stack Arizona. Then we'll look at Michael Harris for Atlanta. Now he has hit the ball extremely well. He also has some nice home run and stolen base potential. He's also cheap enough that he's very viable on the slate and a great option. I almost made him a core play as well. Then we'll look at Nolan Jones for Colorado. He does draw some good metrics for this game. His fantasy point production is a little bit better at home. He also draws some good home run potential as well. And then Ryan, Brian Reynolds is also in play for Pittsburgh. He has hit the ball very well recently with 5 home runs over the last 10 games, and that gives him a lot of upside in a very plus matchup here against Carrasco. And then finally, Josh Lowe can also play here in the outfield for Tampa Bay as he draws really good metrics here, and he's hit the ball pretty solid recently. He hasn't been as much of a home run threat recently, but he does draw that metric today, so I think he's a great option. With that said, guys, thank you for liking, commenting, and subscribing. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to leave them below, and have a nice day, guys.